This video is brought to you by my supporters on Patreon. Hi guys, I'm here with a video kind of showing you how I made my Tyrande elf ears. This video is going to mostly focus on the painting aspect, however I will talk about how I made the base of the ears, only because the files or video files of me actually sculpting the ears are just nowhere to be found. My computer hates me. This happens a lot more often than you guys may realize, and I don't know how to fix it. So I'll cover what I'm doing here. What I'm doing here is taking a heat gun and using that to better shape the foam that I had made the ears out of and add a bit of curvature to the ears just to make it look a little bit more ear shape. Now, how I made the base of the ears was I drew out the base shape of the ear onto 2mm EVA foam, and then I took some cosplay clay, otherwise known as clay EVA foam or EVA foam clay, and I started really just sculpting different ear-like details. This may be easier said than done. It really is just dependent on you. It's all just the process of really winging it, to be honest. I just looked at ears and different reference photos and tried to just kind of place random lines almost here and there to add in all of the, I don't want to call them wrinkles because they're not really wrinkles that the ears have, but all of the different, I don't really know the anatomy of an ear, so I don't know what to consider it. But like if you look at your own ear, you'll see different curves and raised parts of the ear and like the little flappy bit that's like towards the inner ear. Yeah. And just a bunch of other things like that. So I just kind of looked at a bunch of different ears, a bunch of different elf ear pictures, as well as the WoW ones, and tried to best mimic those with this clay foam as possible, adding different like heights to these little curves, as well as adding one main like curved part or raised part along the entire edge of the ear up until I think I got to more kind of towards the base of the ear, like the part that's going to be sitting against your head, because on real ears that's a little bit more flat. So I flattened that out a tiny bit. However, there is a slight raised edge still. Hopefully this is making sense. If you're looking here, you can kind of see the different textures I added. I also just added some different like veiny looking pieces, and then anything else, like if I had too much, I would just kind of take a little bit of water and press that out and blend it into the 2mm EVA foam. This doesn't need to be super perfect, so whenever you're happy with it, it's time to move on to the next step, which was heating up the earpieces and just adding a bit of curvature, especially towards the like tips of the ears, because the tips of the ears usually roll in just a slight bit more than the rest of the ears. And then once you're happy with that, it's time to move on to the priming. To prime these ears, I used wood glue mixed with a little bit of water just so that it applies a bit more smoothly, and I did about 3 to 5 layers of this. Once those wood glue layers were dry, I moved on to painting. To start off, I laid down a base coat of a purple color that was going to match my body paint and the tights that I had bought for this cosplay. I used my airbrush to do this, but all of the painting steps in this are totally achievable with just a paintbrush and regular acrylic paint. And you can totally use spray paint to do the base color as well. Using a lighter shade of purple and my airbrush, I applied some highlights to the center of the more flat area of the ears, as well as along the top of the raised areas of the ear. Again, this is totally doable with a brush and acrylic paint. I also applied it on the back a little as well, mostly towards the center. Sometimes I did occasionally apply too much or covered too large of an area. However, it's fine. We go back in and add more shadows in a little bit. This was mostly to just add in some gradients of purple because skin isn't like perfectly all one color, so I didn't want the ears to be either. I mixed an even lighter shade of purple and applied that as a highlight as well, but this one was stuck like towards the center of the open areas of the ear, or at like the very tippy tops of the raised areas on the back. It did take up a little bit more space and I accidentally spilled it at one point, so you're gonna see me like dab it and blend it out with a napkin here in a little bit. So there are ways to fix it. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect. I'm mostly just doing this to add a little bit of a variation in color, just to make it look more skin-like, I guess, and just give the ears a little bit more depth overall. I used acrylic paint in a dark purple color and paintbrushes to do the shading for the ears. You can do this with a airbrush if that's what you've been using. However, I was new to airbrushing and did not trust myself to get these like only stick to the areas that I actually wanted the paint to go and not just totally cover the highlights and different shades that I had already placed down. So I opted for good old paintbrush and acrylic paint, and used this to apply shadows to any area that had like a raised area next to it. So any place where the raised areas, like as you can see here, meets the more flat areas of the ear, I added shadow around there. And this was just to give the ear a little bit more depth again and accentuate the different wrinkles or whatever the ear has. When working with regular acrylic paints and a paintbrush, it's best to work in very small sections because you've got to work quick to blend it out before it like dries too quickly. And if you do find your paint drying too quickly and you can't really blend it out, just dip your paintbrush in a teeny tiny bit of water or on like a wet paper towel or something, and that will help you blend out the paint a little bit better. After all of the shading is done, coat everything with a clear coat of spray paint to seal the paint. A matte paint would work best for this. And then we can move on to the final step, which is to attach whatever attachments you'll be using. You can totally glue these directly onto the wig, onto a headband, use magnets that you place on the back of this and on the inside of the wig, or use hair clips. I went with hair clips. I used contact cement to glue these into place because that's the strongest glue I own. I'm not sure what else would work. I wouldn't recommend hot glue. It tends to peel off of metal fairly easily. To figure out the placement for these clips, I placed the ear to my head, figured out where the ear would come into contact with my hair or like the wig, to be honest, because the wig's going to cover my actual ears. So wherever the wig sat, that's where I placed the clips. I placed 2 of them and that was enough to keep these into place. And I placed 2 because I didn't want to risk just one and having the end of the ear end up like way too floppy or anything. So I placed 2, one more towards like the front of the base of the ear and one a little bit farther back before the ear hits the point where it would technically like pull away from your head. And that is it. That finishes up this video. I hope you found this video helpful, even though I didn't have the sculpting part, and stick around for other videos. I promise not everything I make ends up missing video clips. It just happens occasionally. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Have a lovely day, and bye!